Okay, so get this. You ready for this?
Hit me.
Some lucky soul with a metal detector, right? Over in Norfolk, England,
Uh-huh.
unearths a tiny, tiny gold and garnet sword mount.
No way.
I know. But here's the kicker. It's Sutton Hoo era. We're talking late 6th, maybe early 7th century.
Wow.
And these things, you know how rare these things are.
I mean, pretty rare, I'd imagine.
There might be like a dozen, maybe less than a dozen in the entire country.
That's incredible. It's like finding a needle in a haystack.
Totally. And today, we've got an expert joining us. We're going to break this down, this little treasure. What can it tell us about Anglo-Saxon warriors? I mean, that's what we're here to find out, right?
Yeah, it really is a remarkable find. Because you're right. This tiny little mount, it can unlock so much. We might get some insights into their weaponry, their rituals, maybe even belief systems. Who knows?
All right. So first things first, right? For those of us who maybe don't spend every weekend digging up ancient artifacts, what exactly is a sword mount?
Well, it's a good question. Because it's small, this decorative piece, and it attaches the scabbard, right, to the warrior's belt. And they probably would use leather or fabric straps. We can actually thank a guy named Paul Mortimer. He's a craftsman. He creates replicas of Sutton Hoo weapons. So we have him to thank for some of these insights.
So this is the link, basically, between the sword and the warrior himself.
Yeah, exactly.
And it sounds like they were pretty, I mean, this wasn't just some, like, slapdash job. They put real artistry into these things.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And what's really kind of mind-blowing is that this mount, it would have been attached to something organic like bone or ivory, maybe antler, and those things decay, right? So all we have is this little metal piece. But think about the skill that it took to work with those materials back then.
I know. It's crazy. And get this, each mount is unique. Like, no two are the same. We actually know that from Helen Geek. She's the finds liaison officer for Norfolk. So basically, she sees all the cool stuff that gets dug up. And she points out that we don't have a lot of evidence about how they were actually used, these mounts.
That's true. Which kind of leads to some interesting theories, some fun speculation. One theory is that they were, get this, peace bands.
Okay, hold on. Peace bands. Like, what? Were they handing these out at Anglo-Saxon peace rallies?
No, not exactly. But the idea is to draw your sword, you'd have to unfasten this band, right? So you've got this built-in pause. It might prevent some impulsive act of violence, a little cooling off period before you, charge into battle.
Yeah, that's a pretty profound concept when you think about it.
It is.
But these sagas, they were written like centuries after Sutton Hoo. So how much can we really rely on those to understand the mindset back then?
Right. And, it really highlights one of the challenges in this field because we're piecing together the past from these little fragments, and sometimes the evidence contradicts itself. But the sagas, even if they're not a perfect match, they might offer a glimpse into broader cultural traditions, the kind of things that might have existed in earlier centuries.
It's like trying to understand modern slang by reading Shakespeare, right? You might get a few things, but you're not getting the full picture.
That's a great analogy. But
Yeah.
Getting back to the mount itself, Paul Mortimer, remember our replica maker?
Yeah.
He's got a different take on it. He's thinking more symbolic, not just practical. He calls them the eye of the sword. He's picturing how the gold and the garnet, they would really stood out against, whatever that white backing was. Probably bone, right?
Oh, wow. I can totally picture that. And it's making me think about, like, the Sutton Hoo helmet, with those fierce eyes. Was there a connection? Like, did they tie these to a specific god?
You're on the right track there. Remember how the Sutton Hoo sword is unique because it's got two bosses, those raised, rounded parts?
Yeah.
Mortimer connects that with Odin, the one-eyed god.
Right, Odin, the god of war.
Yeah.
And poetry, wisdom, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, having his symbol on your sword, that's got to send a message.
Oh, yeah. Huge message. Odin was all about strength, cunning,
Yeah.
that connection to the supernatural. So an Anglo-Saxon warrior, picture him. He's going into battle, and he's got this sword with Odin's symbol on it. It's more than just a weapon at that point, right? It's power, it's protection, maybe even a link to the divine.
I love that image, like going into battle with the eyes of Odin on your sword. It's amazing how much this one tiny object can tell us.
Oh, right. It's a tiny glimpse into their craftsmanship, their warrior culture, even their belief systems. And it helps us understand Sutton Hoo, too. That ship burial, it's just so rich in symbolism, artistry, everything.
It's like holding a tiny key to a huge door, a door leading straight into the past. And the story keeps going. Norwich Castle Museum and Gallery. They're hoping to acquire this mount.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
This thing in a museum, and if this tiny mount could actually talk, I mean, what stories would it tell? Tales of battles, maybe oaths sworn between warriors, or maybe prayers whispered to Odin. I mean, who knows? It makes you wonder what other secrets are still out there.
It does, doesn't it? And that's a great place to leave our listeners today. We've got this tiny, beautiful artifact. It's a window into a lost world. And it's a reminder, too, that history is full of surprises.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See you then.